Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews Saturday Conversation Show, an interview series where I talk to entertainment personalities, content creators, and filmmakers about their work and love of film. Today's guest is Steven Scarlata, an award-winning director, producer, and writer whose credits include Jodorowsky's Dune and Sharksploitation. Steven is also the co-host of the popular podcast Best Movies Never Made, where Steven and co-host Josh Miller explore the most legendary movies never made. Steven has been a fixture for such a long time in just cult movie and horror movie and genre filmmaking circles. And Steven, myself and so many other people out there, we just really appreciate and love what you do. Whether as a filmmaker, a podcast host, whether through, the documentaries and, the things you do and, talking to lowly YouTube people like myself and give us the time of your day. So I just want to say thank you so much for all your work before we start, and also thank you for your time today. It's really appreciated.
Yeah, man, no problem. I love what you do. I love podcast. I love podcasts. I love YouTube podcasts. I love watching all this stuff. So it's nobody's yeah, it's what we watch, man. It's the new form out there. I don't think people realize YouTube. It's like it's starting to become more and more my go-to now. So I love stuff like this. So I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
I love watching stuff on YouTube as well, but it's so different to what I had when I was growing up. I'm 43, so I grew up during the 80s, 90s, and so when I grew up, I was watching VHS, and later on there'll be cable stuff and all that. I'm curious when it comes to yourself, Stephen. Growing up, what was your first kind of exposure to, I guess, the movies that made you who you are today? And when was the first time you kind of watched the films, and how did you watch the films uh, that made you the person you are today in regards to your tastes of films and TV shows?
It's a boring answer. I'll just blow through it. Jaws is one of the main ones. My dad took me to see it during its re-release back in the 70s. And my dad would back then it was before it came on HBO. I'm like 50 now, so this is in the 70s. I don't think it came on HBO until maybe like 79 or something, but
Hmm.
it would get re-released and my dad would come home from work some days and just pick me up when we'd go to the theater and see it from any part it was on back then. I love Jaws. It changed my life. And yeah, and probably the movie I watched the most. And then growing up, I think in 83 we got our VHS player for the first time. First movie I ever rented was called Blood Beach. And then from there on I just rent just and I know the third movie I rented was Evil Dead because we had
Hmm.
this mark on the video card for the first five free movies. And yeah, man, I would rent any horror movie I would see in Fangoria, I would rent. And yeah, that's what man, I rented so much crazy stuff back then as a kid. And I had a Fangoria membership while I was in elementary school. So that is what taught me. That's the stuff I was watching. I was watching just crazy horror and a lot of viewers out there know like 80s was just the mecca of horror. It was such a great time to grow up with seeing all that stuff.
I also heard in an interview you talking about how Sunday afternoon TV and Saturday TV was a big part of your life as well. You had the Commander USA groovy movies thing going on the USA Network. And it was like all types of different films, horror movies, martial arts movies. In fact, when I was doing my research, I actually found a playlist on YouTube of all the Commander USA movies in the playlist. And I was like looking through all the different movies, like, man, I never heard of these films before. And I saved it because I want to watch it in the future. What was that like in that time where you can go onto a TV channel on a Saturday, and in the afternoon will be all these martial art films or these kind of horror films as well. And you could just feast on this stuff for like on the weekend. I'm sure that was awesome to watch as well.
Oh my God, dude. I never left the house on Saturday. And looking back now, I couldn't believe how lucky I was. It was you could watch it on YouTube, like the Saturday morning cartoons that we had, like our three main channels over here in the States, CBS, NBC, what was it,
A-
ABC, like
ABC,
from
yeah.
Yeah, from like 7 in the morning until 11 o'clock, you had all these you had all these cartoons on each
Mm,
channel. You'd flip back and forth. Then I had WWF wrestling, and WWF wrestling, now it's called WWE, would play previews for horror movies all the time. And then after WWE or WWF wrestling, you had Glow. And after Glow, yeah, which was women's wrestling, then you'd have Commander USA, like you described. And Commander USA rarely edited their movies for violence. It was
mm,
awesome. It was so cool. And then at oh yeah, and then sometimes earlier 80s was the martial art theater on Channel 11 out here. All the Shaw Brothers movies. That's how I got introduced to all that stuff that I'm still obsessed with today. And then at night, this is still Saturday, USA Network had USA Network had either Gilbert Godfrey. Oh, Gilbert Godfrey was Friday night. Rhonda Shear was Saturday night, and they'd play all the Scream Queen B movies like Sorority Babes and Slime Bull Bolorama, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. That whole era of Scream Queen, Fred Olin Ray type, David Dakota, crazy B movies. Then you flip the channel to the movie channel, and you had Joe Bob Briggs drive-in theater where he was showing Andy Sedaris movies and Herschel Gordon Lewis movies. Dude, it Saturday was the greatest day for a kid. For a kid like me growing up, it was, oh my God, man, Saturday after Saturday. And then eventually I learned about Night Flight, which would go from 11 p.m. all the way until like I think it was like 3 or 4 a.m. And then they would
mm.
show movies and they would show the movies that they would show the music videos that MTV didn't play, like Bad Brains and stuff like that. And that's how I got introduced more to like punk rock music was through there. It was like TV was really filling, I mean, yeah, it's pretty wild to think about because MTV is nothing like that anymore, or television is nothing like any of those shows I really just expressed. There's no more Saturday morning stuff. Wrestling is now on during the week. But yeah, man, Saturday was fantastic. Sorry, I don't want to bore your audience with all that. I can just keep going and going. It was such a
No,
great day.
I love it, and I think I remember growing up myself, like watching just all morning Saturday morning cartoons. Cartoons are awesome. You know, funny enough, sometimes a lot of the stuff that I used to watch when I was a kid that first came out, like your He-Mans and your Ninja Turtles and all this stuff, they've rebranded, and it's like my kids now watch the new versions, but I always try to get them to watch the old versions. They're a little kind of like, what is this? It's kind of slower, and why he's like, this is. I'm like, this is great stuff. Just watch it. It's awesome. Um, when you have those Saturdays, and you're renting all these films and everything, you're clearly consuming all of these movies. It's forming your taste. It's forming who you are. But it's that also putting that spark, that idea in your brain around that time that you want to do something in that world, or you want to do something in film. Is that where that kind of started for you, Stephen?
Yeah, it was. I can't remember when I wanted to be. Oh, yeah, know what it was? I wanted to be effects artist first. That's what it was. That was mostly through watching horror and reading Fangoria. And then I started realizing in high school, early on in high school, that I didn't have that artistic ability to sculpt and do what those people could do. My dad pretty much told me it's not that I figured it out. My dad's like, I've seen your art and I've seen, he tried and I just couldn't get it. And immediately, it didn't crush me that much because immediately the second thing was movies. And I used to write a lot of stories in school. I did win awards in school for some of my short stories, but I was sent to a psychiatrist in school because some of the stories I wrote were so visceral and disturbing, you know. And thinking back on it, they must be like, what the hell is wrong with this kid? And so, yeah, then immediately it shaped into, I want to be a filmmaker. And then I got into writing during my like first pass in film school.
Something that what was happening around that time in your life as well, or maybe a little later, is you were working kind of like on a lot of the Roger Corman stuff. You kind of describe yourself as a mercenary. If they needed to build sets, you'll be there to build sets. You need to be an electrician, you'll be there. Electrician. I think it was Carnosaur 3 Primal was the first time, like the first time you worked as an electrician. But I've looked at your IMDb, and I know you've said there's so many stuff that's not on there that you've worked on all that time. And I've heard you describe how sometimes you would get a call like early morning, like, "Hey, we need someone down here. You available?" And you're like, "Fuck yeah, I'm coming down. I'm doing it." Because that's what you had to do. You do the work. That's how you kind of, these days networking is, maybe you're on LinkedIn or you go to a conference or stuff like that. Back then, it was you're on the sets, you're doing the work, you're letting yourself be known through the work. How important was it for you to just always be available and always be willing to say, yes, I'll do that, I'll do this, especially working for, down at Venus Beach, working for those Roger Corman films. That would have been just as education in themselves, considering who he was in the movies that he made.
Yeah, that was the first ever paycheck I ever made was on a Roger Corman movie. It was this, God, what was it called? I always forget it. It had Martin Sheen as Al Capone and this other dude. It was like this Capone movie. I was helping them build sets. That was my first ever paycheck, and I'll never forget like sitting in the hall, not sitting, I was standing in the hallway waiting to fill my paperwork. And it was like a Don the Dragon Wilson future kick poster I was staring at. And I love that movie. Chris
Mm,
Penn fighting Don the Dragon Wilson. I love that shit in high school. Anyway, yeah. That it was the thing where I'm happy, Corman is such an icon. I never got a chance to like write or direct a movie for him, but I worked behind the scenes on movies, and that was kind of a big deal for me growing up, knowing the people that went through that machine. And yeah, man, it was just you had to pay rent. So I would just, when the phone would ring, whatever they would throw at me, I would take because you had to pay the rent. You either make 50 bucks a day, 100 bucks a day. If you were lucky, 150 bucks a day because I wasn't union or anything.
mm,
And yeah, and there is a lot of stuff I worked on that is not on my IMDb, and I just didn't. Yeah, a lot of like Playboy Channel stuff and a lot of weird stuff like that that you just have to pay the bills, stuff that I just don't really need to go out there and I need all that stuff on my IMDb. It's kind of
mm.
like you had to pay the bills, so you take anything. I worked on a lot of stuff that never got released, to be honest, too. And I'm always trying to figure out been always trying to figure out who was making them. But I was a kid back then, and I didn't save all my call sheets or stuff like that, which bums me out now. I'd love to know what happened to some of that stuff. But yeah, man, that's how you met people. You work on a movie, people liked who you are, they see that you came on time. That was the most important thing. And then
Mm.
they call you for other shows.
When it comes to Roger Corman, who passed away this year, he was such a vital part in so many careers for decades, and the number of actors, filmmakers, crew that came out of his films, his sets, his studios, is just phenomenal. And I was thinking to myself, and I think a lot of people were as well, and maybe they were openly saying it. Will there really be another person like a Roger Corman? Is the industry where we are now, is it ground for a Roger Corman anymore? I mean, it just seems like now it's not about people, but it's about platforms. It's not about studios as much anymore. It's about conglomerates, and it just feels like the Roger Cormans of the world maybe just can't grow in an industry like that. I want to know about your perspective on that.
No, there will never be another Roger Corman. I was just trying to figure out what year was his first movie ever, because it's like that guy. I mean, definitely, yeah, 50s and 60s and 70s,
Mm,
80s. Oh my God. Yeah, he was, no, never will be. And then same thing with like a Charles Band. I feel like the same way. There'll never be anything like him either. People could look down upon that dude. I don't get how. The guy did his own cinematic universe before people were doing that. He's incredible too. But Corman, yeah, is the godfather of just so many movies, and he just knew, and every decade he just rolled with it. He was just, yeah, he was brilliant, really brilliant. Yeah, there'll never
I
be
think
anyone else. He did erotic
I don't think so.
thrillers.
Yeah.
Like after Basic Instinct, he did erotic thrillers, you know. After Alien, he was doing Alien ripoffs. I mean, after Jaws, he was doing Jaws ripoffs. Like he was just always following the curve, you know. Biker films are hot. I'm gonna make a bunch of biker films and then prison movies, and those movies are all good when you watch them. The 60s, 70s, 80s stuff, and some 90s stuff, you know. But let me shut off my mail. Damn. I need to rewatch some of his 90s stuff, but yeah, but he had a good track record. He was amazing. I was very lucky to interview him for my documentary, and it was humbling because it was the first time I really did ever meet him. When I was working for him, I never met him once. I never seen him once when I was working on those sets.
When you talked to him for Shark Exploitation, did you mention to him, "Hey, I've worked on a bunch of these things," or did you kind of left it on the side?
Oh, I definitely told him I had to. No, he was thrilled to know. It was cool, you know. He was so welcoming to us. That was the other thing. We got to go to his office and set up, and yeah, he was so cool, man. He was so cool, so welcoming. And I've never met anyone that had like a bad experience with him. He was so nice. And and he was just, man, all of his material he was giving us was just so good. He would mess up and then rewind back. He'd be like, hold on, rewind back, and then just freaking nail it, man. God, man, yeah, he's something else.
Sure is Roger Corman, one and only. Please support Matt's movie reviews on Patreon. Get access to exclusive content, request movie reviews and top 10 lists, and help support my work. Please click on the Patreon link in the description below. I want to move on now to a game I like to call Choose Between Two. Basically, Stephen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you two options. And you're going to choose one. You're going to give me your reasons why. And I've tailored these as best I can to your tastes, to the movies you like, your experiences, etc. So I'm going to hit you with the first one. Which director would you rather see do a shark movie? Alejandro Jodorowsky or David Lynch?
Ooh, probably David Lynch. I love Jodorowsky, but immediately I just want to know what David Lynch would do with it. I don't think either one of them would show the shark a lot, to be
Hmm.
honest.
What would a Lynch shark be a movie be like, do you think? Would it be I don't know. Uh, I'm just trying to think myself because the only time I ever known him to work on really like a big kind of creature kind of thing was Dune, right? And that's pretty much it throughout his career.
Yeah, Dune is probably his only creature. He tried to make a thriller around the time of, I'm going off of a memory. I could be wrong. I could have it maybe wrong. I'd have to look it up, but around the time of Blue Velvet, he wanted to do like some type of thriller by a lake. So maybe it is something there aquatic. I don't know. I mean, there would be no creature in the lake or anything. It would just been a thriller, probably around some type of lake house. But yeah, I that would be something I would love to see. Yeah.
Favorite Roger Corman rip-off movie? Future Kick, which was the rip-off of the Terminator, or Piranha, which was a rip-off of Jaws. Which of the two do you
I,
prefer?
I love Future Kick, but I'd have to say Piranha for sure. It's so good. It's
That's
probably one of the best.
James Cameron's first film as well, right?
Is it James Cameron's the first Piranha? I'm not sure if he worked. I know Galaxy of Terror he worked on, and then that's what got him Piranha 2.
Ah, right, Piranha 2. I was trying to figure out which Piranha was because I remember someone tried to mention it to him in an interview. He was just like, not talking about that film, don't want to acknowledge it, nothing like that at all. Which is a shame, I
Uh,
think.
yeah, it is. It, you know what? It got released on Blu-ray. It looks really beautiful. Um, it's a bummer. Yeah, he got it taken away from him, but
Uh,
it's a. But you know what? He bounced back. He bounced back with Terminator immediately after. So, I mean, he did fine. You know, I mean, he's probably it sucks. He's ashamed of it, but it was taken away from him. It's a bummer. But Galaxy of Terror is probably my second favorite Corman ripoff.
is that
That was
that's an Alien ripoff, right?
it's an alien ripoff. It's I love that movie. There is one scene that unfortunately doesn't age very well today, but that's, 80s movies. It's difficult now to there's lots of scenes in many 80s movies that aren't appropriate anymore, unfortunately.
Well, I know. Well, I know you were mentioning Evil Dead before. That's like another example of that. But yeah, 80s are the
Yeah,
80s. What can you do? All
yeah.
right. Favorite horror. Favorite horror movie sequel. Dawn of the Dead or Hellraiser 2.
Oh, Jesus, that's really hard, dude. I like both those movies. You did your
Hmm.
research. Shit. Oh, that's a hard one. Oh God, I have to say Dawn of the Dead just because that's probably my top five. One of my, I have a top five favorite. That would be it's Dawn of the Dead's on the top five for sure. It was a huge movie for me. Like how I say Jaws was huge, Dawn of the Dead was also huge because my dad used to watch all these long epic war movies and like Ben-Hur and stuff like that. And Dawn of the Dead was like the first horror movie I came across that was over 2 hours, and I always consider it as this epic, which it
Hmm.
is. And yeah, Dawn of the Dead, Hellraiser 2, I freaking love. That is very close by though. Oh, it's so
I
good.
actually like Hellraiser 2 better than the first Hellraiser. I think the second one, the way they kind of expanded the world and the whole Leviathan thing and what I thought is really incredibly well done.
I'm with you on that. I love Hellraiser 1, but I'm with you. I've always considered Hellraiser 2 for myself better, you know. That's just, our opinion. Don't want to fight people on it, but yeah.
Next one, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I'll ask anyway. Practical effects in a movie or CGI visual effects?
Oh, it's definitely practical for sure. 100%. Love practical. I don't mind CGI. I know we're in a different time period, and I can most of the time I can forget I'm watching CGI effects. I think I've trained my brain enough to look past it, except if it's an extremely low budget movie, I can't help but to notice. But yeah, always a fan of practical.
Last one. You're in the cinema. What's your go-to snack? Popcorn or candy?
Oh, unfortunately, I can't eat popcorn anymore because I had this digestive problem for like the last 10 years and I miss it so fucking much. So unfortunately, I gotta have candy, which I'll still
What's your
do. I'll go
go-to
for
what's your
milk
go-to
duds.
candy snack? Milk
It's the
duds?
milk.
Okay.
Yeah, probably not good for my teeth, but I love milk duds. And it
Do
feels like
you
sometimes they're never ending,
yeah.
too in that. I love that.
Do you pre-buy from a like a from the grocery store to get a like cheaper option because cinemas unfortunately just like to jack up the prices so much with the confectionery stuff?
100% have to. Yeah. I used to even pop my own popcorn and sneak it in too. I was one of those guys. Yeah,
Hey, we
just
still
it's it's
I still did that at home with my kids because they're like, I know they want popcorn. And I'm like, I ain't spending $20 on a small, whatever. I'll make it at home, we'll bag it, we'll take it there. And they don't mind it, they're watching the movie, so it's at the end of the day,
yeah.
they love it. I want to talk about when you decide to, you've been working in the industry for so long, you've been doing all stuff with behind the scenes, Corman stuff and everything else when you decide to delve into something like, say, Jodorowsky's Dune as a producer and such, what's that like for you? What type of inroads, what type of work has to be done to reach that level where you could get a movie like that off the ground? How many years do you have to work on that, and what type of status or how do you establish yourself in the industry to the point where you get a movie off the ground like that? Is it just come down to networking and working and just getting your name out there and just hustling and getting that film up there and ready for people to see.
Um well, the first documentary I produced was in I mean, we started it in 95. It didn't come out until 99. It was called New York Hardcore, about the New York hardcore music scene. And then for years, we were trying to get something made. And at the time, I was partnered up with the director of that. And we were trying to get stuff made for years, but it's very hard to get movies made. And you get close and it would fall apart because you're independent. And then eventually, when I came up with the concept of Jodorowsky's Dune, we it was yeah, I see what you're saying because it's just like I mean, I think today's day and age with documentaries, you can go out there and start shooting a anyone can.
Yeah,
Anyone watching this video can go make a documentary. It's like if you can get the person on board and you get the camera, you set it up and you shoot them. You could do it, you know. It's with Jodorowsky, it just took a lot of convincing. It was about finding him, which was really difficult at the time because it was like he disappeared. And then when we found him, it was about, it was approaching him. We approached him and we didn't even hear back from him for a long time. And then all of a sudden, one day when I just thought it was all long and forgotten, I guess there was two other people at the same time that wanted to make the same documentary we did with him. And I think that's when Jodorowsky came back to all of us and was like, all right, now it's which one of you three is going to make this movie? Like, prove you. It was like, remember in The Dark Knight when the Joker like took the pool stick and broke it and threw it to the guys of who's going to
yeah.
join you. That's what happened. We all had to all of a sudden scramble and approach Jodorowsky with a way that he was going to agree for us to do it, you know. And the director not only wrote him a good email, but he even flew out to see him to talk to him personally, and I think that's what really won him over. And he was saying like, yo, this is about your vision, because one of the people that wanted to make it, they wanted to do the documentary in 3D, which would have been
Mm.
really expensive and difficult. And Jodorowsky hates 3D because we even had a cutout of our movie. He went on about 3D for a long time, very a little vulgar about 3D. I don't want to repeat it. It was pretty funny though. But yeah, we ended up winning the bid. I'm very to this day, I'm very thankful and humbled that we did because that was like my dream project getting that movie off the ground. I was obsessed with Jodorowsky, obsessed with him. God, now I have to shut this off. Yeah, it was yeah, that I mean, it's like I said, man, like anyone out there can make a documentary. If you're passionate about a subject, you could do it, man. Just reach out to the person and give them your give them like God, am I spacing on my words today? Pitch it to them the best you can, and if they come on board, you can start shooting it. The hardest part is the editing and finishing up the project. And if you're going to have movie clips in it, then you need, that's a whole other issue and
Mm.
other stuff. But you could do it. If you start shooting a documentary, you could finish it. So we were just very lucky at the time. Plus, we all were working in film, so we weren't, it wasn't like we knew what we were doing, we knew how to do the movie. So it's like you said, I've been working in these movies since the 90s. So it's not like I'm coming out of nowhere, also had credits and stuff like that. That helps too.
So there's a couple of themes in your career that I find to be really consistent. One of them is the best movies like never made kind of thing, because Jodorowsky's Dune definitely in there. The podcast is definitely in there. The other one is shark films. So there's like these two kind of lanes you're like really invested in, right? When it comes to the whole thing regarding best movies never made, the podcast, Jodorowsky's Dune, and things like that, where does that fascination come from in regards to? I wonder why this didn't happen. Because sometimes, like listening to your podcast or watching stuff like the elements are there for these films to really get off the ground, but for one reason or another, or multiple others, it just doesn't happen. And it is fascinating how like a vision can come so far and then turn into nothing. Where did that kind of fascination on your part come from regarding that?
It, when I was talking about earlier, when I was growing up, it was Fangoria, Starlog, and Cinefantastique were three magazines I was reading all the time. And you would read about movies in Fangoria that never came out, but that didn't really spark me or anything. But it was Cinefantastique did like a write up on. I don't know if they did a write up on. I'm still trying to find it to this day. The article where I learned about David Cronenberg's Total Recall in there,
Hmm.
and and that's when it dawned on me, like, wow, this got so, because I love Total Recall. Actually, I believe next to Commando, Total Recall is my favorite Schwarzenegger movie. And I'm happy that version got made. But I do also love David Cronenberg, and it blew my mind as a kid. I was like, wait, what? David Cronenberg was gonna make Total Recall? And that seed was planted. And from that moment on, whenever I'd read a magazine or years or read about a movie. Like I always loved reading about the upcoming movies in Fangoria, and then years later, wait, that never came out, like, oh wait, Tarantino never produced that Halloween movie. What happened to that,
Mm.
And those seeds always stuck in my head. And then it was the one, and also, like I said, I was obsessed with Jodorowsky. There was a certain point when I was in film school, I discovered Jodorowsky. I was out of, or Dario Argento was like my favorite filmmaker, and I ran out of movies to rent because there was only so many you could find. And I saw Claudio Argento's name on a Santa Sangre VHS box, and I rented it, and I was blown away by it. And I looked up I didn't look up the director. There wasn't really a lot of internet. I was just remembered that name, and it was about searching out now Jodorowsky movies. Became obsessed with him, and then eventually at work, at one of my jobs, I had the internet access. It took me a long time to afford a computer back in the 90s. And then that's when I read about Jodorowsky's Dune for the first time. And then once I read about Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune, I just couldn't get it out of my head. I just could not forever. I was like, what is that movie? Because I also love David Lynch's Dune. That's
Mm.
a whole other side tangent. Growing up, I loved that movie so much because it was supposed to be the next Star Wars, and it wasn't. And I didn't understand it, so I kept watching it over and over again to understand it, which I never could because I never read the book. So I don't know, just the fact that Jodorowsky almost made Dune, and then from there on, also just yeah, man, there was so many movies, yeah, that were just kept collecting in my brain. I wanted to learn more and more about that were never made. It just became like kind of like this weird obsession, and then that's when the podcast kind of came to be. And so
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. It's odd we're living in a time right now where for decades and it's shown in the podcast your podcast just how many stories there are about movies not being made. But we're living in a time now where in the film industry, big movies have been made through people like Warner, or what they call now, Warner Media, like Batgirl or that Acme versus Coyote thing. They're made, but
Mhm.
then they're locked in a vault, so no one can
Oh,
watch them because of accounting purposes. This is just such a wild thing to me where, and I'm sure when independent filmmakers around the world are making movies for like $1 million or whatever, they hear about these multi-million-dollar things just being locked away forever. They're like, God, well, I would have loved to have a piece of that money to make my own film, and these movies being locked away. It's just an odd evolution of the filmmaking process where I don't know. It's kind of weird to me how, and I kind of understand it from like a company acquisition merger kind of thing, but as a filmmaking thing to have a whole film made with big stars and everything else, and no one's ever going to see it. It's just such an odd thing for me, Stephen, to kind of wrap my head around sometimes.
I agree, man. It's very like the most infamous one for years was the Jerry Lewis clown movie, The Day the
Oh,
Clown Cried.
right,
Very
right.
fascinating because it's out, it's finished. I mean, maybe it's not finished. The guy who runs the Projection Booth podcast like started investigating it and started realizing maybe it's not finished, but the footage is out there, you know? And with the Coyote thing and Batgirl, oh man, those are so many people worked on that. Michael Keaton's Batman again, and we'll never see it, or will we eventually one day? I still have hope for those ones. I kind of always I still have hope for those. I guess the Scooby-Doo one, something happened to also. I'm
Yeah, that's
holding
right.
out.
Yeah,
I'm hoping maybe the next guy that comes into Warner or something, because look what happened with that Snyder cut. That wasn't supposed to happen. Maybe that was, That's a whole other conversation because people hate. I don't mind Zack Snyder. I think it was really cool that we got that cut, and it proved that it was better than the original. And so what was the other one? Oh yeah, did you ever hear a movie called Gone with the Pope?
No.
Okay, so this was released by Grindhouse Releasing. Bob Murawski, he's the editor of he won an Oscar for The Hurt Locker. He stumbled upon while he has like a Blu-ray label, and he stumbled upon while working on one of his Blu-ray releases just this garage of film prints of this movie called Gone with the Pope. Because he was putting out this movie called Massacre Mafia Style, and that same
Mhm.
filmmaker started making this other movie. He shot it, but it was never complete. This editor, spent a couple of years in between his editing gigs assembling it, finished it, and released it. And a lot of people don't know about it, but that's a piece of film history I just think is amazing, that exists. He found that movie, and he's an award-winning editor, and he put it together and he released it. That's I love that. So I always hold out hope that something could resurface, hopefully in our lifetime. But yeah, the Coyote one and the Batgirl, that bums me out because those guys who made the Batgirl movie, they're good filmmakers.
Yeah. I mean, all over Twitter yesterday, people, because the new Bad Boys movie just came out on digital, and so a lot of people got to watch it, didn't see it in the cinema, and they're like, these are the guys that made Batgirl, and this movie's awesome. They're showing clips from the Bad Boys movies, and they're like, look how what they're doing here. It's like you can't tell me that the guys who made this film made a dud movie. And I think the whole thing was the movie. I don't think Batgirl was shelved because it was a dud movie. I think it was shelved just because it was like an accounting thing. It's like this thing cost us so and so money, and for the merger to go forward, we can't release this. It's like a tax write-off, and it's just really depressing when you think about it. That bureaucracy at the end of the day, red tape at the end of the day. It's not a censorship board. It's not a creative decision. It's a bureaucracy thing, and as anyone knows who watched Jaws, when bureaucracy wins, the shark attacks, right? So
No, you're right. I hope the next, it always happens with studios. People come in, people leave. I learned from my podcast, Best Movies Never Made, me and my co-host Josh Miller, the thing that we keep finding out, lots of episodes, why movies get canceled. They're up, they're going, they're building momentum, and then the studio changes. The new
mm,
guy comes in, and because he's the new guy, he doesn't want movies from the old regime to go through. So he starts canceling them all unless they're shot already. And so I hope with Warner Brothers will eventually change hands again. It always, it always happens. I hope the next person that goes in will eventually release those movies. That's my hope, but we'll see. Maybe not, but I hope they will. Uh, yeah,
um,
it sucks. It's so hard to
it
make a
does.
movie.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. I want to move on to our next game that I like to play called Rapid Fire. I'm just going to throw some questions to you. Just give me an answer as quick as you can, so off the top of your head. And if you want to elaborate on it, you can go right ahead. Um, so I ask people all the time, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Now I'm going to alter this a little bit because I'm talking to Steven Scarlata here, and we love shark movies here. Jaws the Revenge is based during Christmas. In fact, the first kill at the start of the movie happens with like Christmas pageantry in the background and music and such like that. So is Jaws the Revenge a Christmas movie, Stephen?
um, well, I'll to set it up. I think Batman. I think Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I'm one of those people because it takes place during Christmas. Takes takes place during Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. I'll say that for a fact. I think Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and now I watch it like every Christmas because it's always on cable or on TV. Joy's Revenge is a tough one because that opening is during Christmas. I think that's one of the best death scenes in the Jaws franchise, is that
Yeah.
opening death scene of that movie. It's really chilling. It's a very chilling death scene. It's a character you've grown up with, and it happens not during the summer, it's during the winter, during Christmas, which makes it something a little bit more creepier about it at night, and you hear the carolers in the back. He gets tortured during that scene. It's a very traumatic, horrible, like, death scene, man. Then they go to the Bahamas, and you get maybe one Christmas song, and then the Christmas thing kind of fades away from it, So I don't, it's a tough question, because sometimes I would probably say it's a Christmas movie, and sometimes I will say it's not. I don't think it's 100% a Christmas movie. But then again, there's that movie with Elliot Gould and fighting that Santa. What's it called? The Silent Partner. Some people consider that a Christmas movie, and Christmas is only in the beginning of that movie. And so,
Mm.
like Joe's Revenge, Christmas is only kind of in the beginning, then it disappears. So I guess it depends, like, because there's those movies that take place in high school, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where there's a Christmas scene in the middle of the movie, but it's not a Christmas movie. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm rambling on. I think at this moment right now, I'll probably say maybe it's not a Christmas movie, 100%.
If I can
Maybe.
make a little case as to why it could be,
Okay.
Christmas movies sometimes need a miracle. You need a Christmas miracle for a Christmas movie. Jaws the Revenge, Michael Caine comes out of the water and he's
Yeah,
dry. If that's not a Christmas miracle, I don't know what is, Stephen. So
you're
maybe that
right.
can go into positive.
Yeah. I always, and also Michael Caine is named as Hoagie. He's named after a sandwich, and he doesn't get eaten. So there you go. There's another Christmas miracle. And the other Christmas miracle in the TV version, Mario Van Peebles survives.
Is that right?
So
Oh, okay.
yeah, so maybe it is a Christmas. Maybe you talked me into it. All right, it's a
Mm-hmm.
Christmas movie.
Yes,
Someone did,
it's the
an
great.
artist, yeah, an artist made a cool Christmas poster for Jaws. It's hard to find. I posted it years ago. I kind of dug it, but anyway,
It's the Great White Christmas movie.
there you
Okay, the
go.
next one.
It's a good
Okay,
title.
so yeah, the Great White. That is a good term. The Great White
Someone
Christmas
needs
movie.
to make that, actually. That's pretty good, man. Hey, you should be making movies, dude. That's good.
Oh, oh man, the reason I love talking to people like yourself, Stephen, and filmmakers and such, because I have such reverence for filmmakers, because it's always been the passion of mine to kind of make it, but I just know that it will never happen for me. I just the circumstances I have right now and everything else, I know I can't get it done. So I like to live vicariously through people like yourself. So
So
another one I want to talk about. So you've done movies, documentaries about movies or movies that have been made, movies that almost were made. Do you have a favorite documentary about movies that you've seen that really sticks out to you? Because there's been quite a lot of them lately in the last several years as well. Like quite a bit. Was there one that kind of sticks out for you that you really enjoy watching?
yeah, I was gonna try to find my letterbox list. I made like a whole list of them at one point. I won't do that. Won't cheat. I'm so happy there's a new genre of movie documentaries coming out. I love that. All right, here are my favorites. I'm gonna give you a few. The one that, like, yeah, I can't really put them in order. American Nightmare, Adam Simon did this phenomenal documentary all about 70s horror films. And he interviewed Wes Craven and George Romero and all those cats. And they not only they didn't just talk about the horror movie, but they also talked about the political, like, effects in them, like how Last House is a Vietnam movie, and the commercialization of in Dawn of the Dead, and how Night of Living Dead's a movie about racism. And they broke it down really intelligently. That's one of my favorite documentaries. That came out maybe in like 99 or 2000, 2001.
Mhm.
Love that movie. Um, the other, a recent one I watched that I really liked, and it's on Vimeo right now. Not Ven, is it Venmo's the money thing. Vimeo's is the the YouTube thing. Anyway, there's a movie
Yep.
called The Bandit, which is all about the making of Smokey and the Bandit. It's
Oh, okay.
really well made, and it's all about Burt Reynolds hanging out with Hal Needham, who would make Smokey and the Bandit and the Cannonball Run, and how he used to live with Burt Reynolds. And it's kind of what Tarantino based Cliff Booth, like Leonardo DiCaprio's character and Brad Pitt's character in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that relationship between Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham, the stuntman and the actor. It's a really cool documentary all about that. It's really good, and it just like it kind of came out, and I think it just came out for like a cable network, but right now it's on Vimeo. You can watch it for free. It's really freaking good. I love that documentary a lot too. Um, I like that Island of Dr. Moreau
Oh, yeah.
documentary from
Yeah.
David Gregory. David Gregory made another phenomenal documentary this past year. And also, my cinematographer, Jim Coons, from the Shark Exploitation documentary, he was the cinematographer for the Island of Dr. Moreau documentary and David Gregory's new Bruce Lee documentary.
Oh, the
Um,
clones of Bruce Lee.
yeah, phenomenal documentary. Phenomenal, dude. So good. Yeah, so I just want to give Jim a shout out. He's like he's incredible. He shoots all the special features for like all these companies, and he's oh man, he's incredible. He's worked on so many good documentaries. Let me see. Oh man, I'm gonna have to look at my list. I'm kind of blanking, but yeah, there's a lot of good documentaries now on Movie Make, and I'm really happy like this is starting because for a while there wasn't as many. There was maybe like the Battle of Citizen Kane came out, or they were very far in between, but now it's kind of cool. We're getting a lot more of
Well,
these.
my theory about why there's so many now as opposed to maybe 10, 20 years ago is because these documentaries used to kind of exist as extras in DVDs and Blu-rays. When DVDs, Blu-rays came
Yes.
out, you have a second disc and you have like hour, 2 hour long kind of documentaries. And now that the physical market has kind of what's it called? Slowed down. Well, it's not died down. It's still alive, but more of kind of a niche kind of thing. But because that thing kind of died down, I think a lot and people love watching that stuff. A lot of these features have come out now. That's my theory about it anyway.
You know what, man? That's a very that's probably what it is, to be honest. I think you nailed it right there. And also there's a lot of people out there that don't buy those DVDs for those documentaries and stuff like that. Now that's a very I think you nailed it right there. And
My
I'll just throw out a couple more. American Movie is great. I found my list. Burden of Dreams, Herzog is one of my favorites. That's a
have
good
you
one
seen
too.
have you seen Not Quite Hollywood, which is about Ozploitation?
But yeah, phenomenal. So good.
Mm.
So good. It hurts. And he made that awesome Canon documentary.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
And
right.
there's another
The
Canon documentary called The Go-Go Boys. I love both of those documentaries. Yeah, I love movie documentaries. Love them.
last one in the rapid fire. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
You know what? I'm from New York. When I first heard about that, I was like, Jesus Christ, please. And then I moved out to California and someone bought it and I was like, and I ate it and it was delicious, you know. So, and now I've been living in LA for so long. That damn it is good. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You're wrong, but it's okay.
I
All right.
know, I know. I hear it's not for everyone. I think yeah, they're
All
putting
right.
everything on
This is what
pizza now anyway.
do you just like toppings heavy?
Yeah,
Well, what's the
everything.
New York version though? What's because I know Chicago is like the deep dish. What's New York? Is New York kind of like bare bones kind of pizzas? Is that what it is? More cheese and maybe a
Uh,
pepperoni and that's it?
yeah, cheese pizza is always good in New York, pepperoni, but then they have the Sicilian. It's just something that's hard to find out here in California. It's that square pizza where the pizzas are square and the crust is
Right.
thick.
Yeah.
That's the Chicago deep dish version of New York, you know. I never
Very
had an
cool.
official Chicago deep dish. I went there to go see, I went to Chicago to go see the Misfits with my friends. We'd had this like City Slickers, like we're we're old, we're gonna go see this punk band we like, but we all kind of got food poisoning while we were there, and we all got messed
Oh
up.
no.
And never got the chance to to try the Chicago deep dish, unfortunately. I'd love to one of these days.
Is that the recent Misfits with Dave Lombardo playing drums and all that?
This was a couple of this was before the pandemic, actually.
Right.
Was he on drums? He might have been. Man, my memory is going. It was a great show. I got to see them twice, luckily. Actually, I got to see them out here also. I'm not sure if Dave was on drums. I should have known that. I love Slayer, so
Yeah.
fucking love Slayer. They're so good. They're
They're
really
doing
good.
they're doing a couple of festival dates now. They're kind of reuniting for that, which I don't understand why, because I always thought that if someone's going to retire and stay retired, it'll be
Yeah.
them. But the money's too
Yeah. I
good, no doubt.
think I might have came to a conclusion a couple of months back that I prefer Slayer over Metallica.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, it's hard. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna get destroyed for that. But if I when once I if I but I don't know, man. There's going back and listening to their old stuff again. I used to always love listening to old Metallica. I still like old Metallica. It's after the Load album and on, I just couldn't handle Metallica. But Slayer just kept releasing stuff, and they never changed.
Mm.
Those that's what I always liked about them. My friend of mine told me there was this great write-up of them at Disneyland. I gotta find that, come to think of it.
Oh, the Slayer at
I heard
Disneyland.
this.
That's pretty funny.
He took Slayer to Disneyland. This is like maybe like 15 years ago or something. But anyway,
I
sorry.
mean, funny. Tom Araya being high and with his big beard and next to Mickey. That'd be funny.
Oh man, I wish I could be there. Maybe that's my next
Um,
documentary.
yeah, I've seen them twice as well, and both times best gigs I've been to. I think the last
Oh,
one I went
dude.
to, it was them and Machine Head in Sydney for the God Hates Us All tour, and it was fantastic.
Oh, that rules. Oh yeah, Machine Head was good live. I saw Slayer on that one tour where they did uh Rain and Blood from beginning to end, that album, and it was
Hmm.
just oh God, beautiful. I
It would have
liked
been
it
a
when
short
bands.
concert. Only goes for 25 minutes that album. So
Oh, I know. No, they did a whole lead up to it. They ended with it
okay,
with the album. They
okay,
did most of their hits, and then they did that for the yeah, because that was like one of those cassette tapes that each side was the full album. It was like
yeah,
as soon
that's
as
right.
the tape ended, it would start again with Angel of Death and end with Rain of Blows. So funny, that cassette.
I can't wait for someone to do a documentary on them. That'll be a great documentary to do, I think, because that's a phenomenal career, I think.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a fucking 4 hour documentary on YouTube about Cannibal Corpse. If you're
Mm.
interested, which is really cool. Someone made a 4 hour documentary about them that's on YouTube. Again, it's what YouTube's fucking great, man.
It
It's like
is.
Tubi and YouTube right now are just ruling it. I don't know if you have Tubi where you are,
Yep, we
unfortunately.
do.
Tubi, you do?
We
Okay,
do.
you're lucky. Tubi is so good, man.
I know.
There's so much good trash on Tubi. Like Amazon Prime used to have all this awesome trash, and then one day it was gone. And then Tubi appeared, and it's like it took all that trash and multiplied it. And I'm watching way more horrible movies now, but maybe it's poisoning me. Maybe it's a bad thing. I don't know. I just watched Surf Ninjas today, and I'm like, why did I watch this? It's so anyway, sidetrack. And if you listen to my podcast, we get sidetracked a lot, unfortunately.
I just want to end this conversation with a question, kind of a big one. The cult film. Do you think it still exists? And by that token, I mean, so the cult film used to be about the counterculture, right? But there's
Hmm.
any such thing as culture anymore when the world is like so invested in diversity. If everything is diverse and everything is segmented, what are we countering now? And if we're not countering anything, is there any movies that kind of reflect that? And also, does a cult movie need to be in theaters as well? Because it seems to me indie films especially can't get into theaters as much they want to. I talk to filmmakers all the time, trying to get theatrical as part of their even limited theatrical as part of their distribution plans is really hard. And it just
Yeah.
seems like it's not cult films anymore. It's viral films now. A film goes viral for a little bit, and that's it. Where the long play films, those ones that stick around for a while, is that still a thing, you think? Because it's a question that I kind of to and fro with a little bit there, because there's just so much stuff out there. It's hard for me to really come to a resolution on that question.
Yeah, there will always be cult films. They've just changed. When I was a kid, it was Eaton Raoul was the big cult movie, and Rocky Horror was the big cult movie. And I think as long as movies get made, there will always be those little ones that a core audience will find. Like, like in that Troll 2 became a cult movie, a phenomenon, There will always be the Room became a cult film before Disaster Artist came out. They'll always be around. A friend of mine who started off doing podcasts, his name is Bill Bill Fulkelson, had Outside the Cinema, made this documentary called Survival of the Film Freaks, where he was just interviewing all people about cult movies. When he interviewed me about cult movies, I was bringing up all these 70s cult movies, and like 80s cult movies, but then everyone else that he was interviewing in the documentary, they all had they were just bringing up movies from like today, from yesterday, and that's when I just kind of started to see like, oh yeah, maybe you know, I was just so stuck in the past with my thoughts when I was being interviewed for that. And now seeing like, oh yeah, I mean, they are still out there. There'll always be cult movies, and I don't think it doesn't matter if they play theatrically or not. They used to play theatrically all the time because they were always shot on film. There wasn't as many movies coming out back in the day, you know. So yeah, I'm trying to think about the most recent maybe. I think like there was a movie that just came out called Hundreds of Beavers. Did you hear that or
Oh,
see that?
yes. Yeah, I saw it and I talked to the filmmakers. It's my favorite film of the year. I mean, have you seen it? I
Yeah,
think it's
phenomenal.
fantastic. Finally just came down in Australia, had a theatrical run down here in Australia, and it just came out digital now. And any person I could get my hands on, I always say to them, "Have you seen Hundreds of Beavers? Have you seen?" Because I absolutely love that film. And what I love about what the guys did on that movie is that they did the whole kind of roadshow thing. They took that movie on the road, kind of like a indie band or something, and just went to every cinema. And they had it playing in the cinemas as well. They made sure they had play in theaters. And I think yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, that's going to be a cult movie, because there was a movie I saw called, you've probably seen it too, called Forbidden Zone. Oingo
Mm.
Boingo was in it. It's black and white. All the sets were made out of cardboard. And then there was another movie I caught called The American Astronaut, another black and white, super low budget movie. And when I was watching Hundreds of Beavers, it brought me back to seeing like Forbidden Zone back in the 90s of like this, what is this? This is homemade. Like you can see the seams around it. And I just was like, dude, this is but Hundreds of Beavers is like a Looney Tunes cartoon. I don't need to talk about. But anyway, that's a cult movie. That's a cult movie. That movie will forever be talked about in small circles. And myself as a filmmaker, that's the for me, I really feel that's the if you can make a cult film, that for me personally is one of the greatest things you could do because it's not a movie you're going to watch on a streaming service, a one-time watch, you watch it 10 minutes later while you're doing the laundry, you completely forgot you seen something, but it's something that you just keep talking about with people, something that 10 years from now, people are still talking about, 20 years from now, people are still talking about. Even when it came out, it didn't make a lot of money or anything, but it's still making the rounds. People still talk about it. That to me, as a filmmaker personally, is the greatest thing you could do because you just made something timeless. That that's beautiful, you know, because yeah, man, there's so many movies you could watch that are just forgettable. It doesn't matter if they're bad or they're good. It's just the fact that they stand the test of time, and they never get forgotten about. I think as a filmmaker, you can make one of those, then uh you did it, you know.
I, I think I kind of equate it to you have relationships in your life, and you might have gone on a date or two, and sometimes you meet the love of your life, and that love of your life is going to stick with you. And kind of like when you first listen to that great band and you're still watching that band 20 years later, like how you and your friends are watching the Misfits, or we're talking about Slayer, and we're talking about all that stuff. There's been 100 other bands you've listened to in that time, but it's those ones, those great loves, those first ones that stick to you because they touch you in your heart. It's something that just speaks to you. And I think that's what well, I just hope that like when my kids get older and they start
Mhm.
watching movies, that they find their ones, their great loves in the cinema world, you know. And I'm trying my best as a dad to expose them gradually to the really cool stuff, whether it's music and what have you, you know. Like my boys know, you know, Van Halen and they know all this stuff, you
Oh,
know.
that
And when they get
rules.
older,
That's
they'll know all the other stuff. And same with movies, like they know, you know. We watch a lot of 80s stuff, you know, and when they get older, we'll watch even more things as well. Because sometimes, you know, uh, I just fear that the content there's too much stuff out there that might get lost
mhm.
in the throw it all, and I just hope that you know there's like some guardians out there that can just still speak to those films like getting lost in the history books. And I think, you know, Steve, I think it's something that you have done so tremendously well throughout your career, whether it's through your documentaries, whether it's through the best movies I never made podcast that you and Josh put together. You are guardians, I think, in sort of reminded us about the movies that almost came to fruition, and B are out there and still need to be seen because you know movies don't die; they're always there. They just need a new, fresher set eyes on them to resurrect them again. And I think that's what you've done. I think you've resurrected movies pretty much through the work that you've done. You brought them to the fore. I would, you know how many movies I've watched, shark movies I've watched since I watched Shark Exploitation. And I had the list of stuff. I'm
Oh,
looking for Cruel Jaws. I'm looking for all these kind of movies, you know, The Last Shark, all that kind of stuff. And even now, when we were talking about documentaries about movies, I'm writing. I got a whole list here of all the stuff you had. I'm going to watch those as well. And I think it's a testament to your career and the work that you've done that you've kept the flame alive. So I mean, so many great movies, and I really appreciate that. And I think a lot of people will appreciate that as well.
well, you're too kind. Thank you for those words. I really appreciate that. Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much. I mean, what have you discovered? I mean, I mean, to ask you a question, I mean, what is one of your favorites so far, like cult movie wise or something? Well, I mean, what would you say? Like what's the movie you can't wait to show your kids? I mean, how I don't know how old they are, but is there a certain like movie you're waiting for them to reach a certain age to show them?
My wife and I have been to and froing as to when Raiders of the Lost Ark would be okay for him to watch. My
Hmm.
oldest is almost 12, but my youngest is 9. And they look right now, they're in a Godzilla run.
Oh,
My oldest
nice.
son loves God, but he loves Toho. He loves all that. He watches all the classic ones, and he likes the new ones as well. But they love that stuff right now. So right now
Oh,
we're
that,
just kind of slowly kind of going into some of the stuff in the 80s, your Raiders and that kind of stuff. I'm trying to get them away from the new superhero movie stuff because they've watched all of that. I'm trying to slowly get them away from that. I'm trying to take them back a little bit and say, hey, you know, before all this stuff came out, there was this stuff here that kind of influenced all that stuff. Willow was something we watched recently that they really enjoyed. But yeah, right now, Raiders is something that's on the precipice that we
nice.
can watch with them. But there's other movies like we watched The Karate Kid, and I can't wait till they're a little more mature so we can start watching the Rocky movies as well. Because Rocky, to me, when I was a kid, the movies, action movies like Stallone movies and stuff like that. When I was a kid, like you were talking about VHS films, I was all about the
Mhm.
action films as well as the horror. And then when it hits that magic moment one summer, when they're like 14, 15, we can watch Jaws. You know, that's going to be awesome as well. You know, my oldest kid's slowly getting into kind of horror fiction stuff, like for young adult kind of stuff. And hopefully one day we can do the John Carpenter road and we just watch stuff like that.
Oh,
Maybe start
nice.
with Big Trouble or Little China, move on to, maybe something like The Thing when he's a little older there, and then something more dense like Prince of Darkness, you know, that kind of stuff. Those are the movies. Those are the guys that really, you know, spoke to me. And then, you know, you of course you got your Scorsese's and other stuff as well, but those are the films that's really kind of really can't wait for them to see because then I know that I have done my work on this world and I'll be happy.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. So you have like your own Marvel phase, which phase you're gonna be going with your kids. That's awesome. Phase one, it's gonna be Carpenter. Phase two, Scorsese. You know,
It's because
that's pretty nice.
I know their sensibilities, and I just want to make sure, and I also want to make sure that they're learning about the crafts and about the stuff. Because when, like, for example, with the Van Halen thing I was saying before, I was saying, it's like,
Hmm.
okay, you got to watch this solo. It's like whenever we're in the car, and Van Halen song comes up. I go, everyone, be quiet. We're going to listen to this now. Just wait, and we'll listen to it. And I say, that's really amazing because he's doing this and he did that. And so yeah, and I think like in another movie as well. I was just thinking about I can't wait for them to see is Crossroads, the movie with Ralph Macchio. The
Oh,
one,
right.
have you seen the one, the blues one,
Oh, yeah,
where
with Steve
with
Vai at
Steve
the
Vai?
ending.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one. Yeah. So
that's
hopefully,
Walter
mate, we
Hill.
can watch that older.
Is that Walter Hill?
I
Who
don't.
directed? Can't
That's a
because
good
that
question. I don't know if that's. I don't think it's Walter Hill.
who did
I'm not
that?
sure.
No, I don't think so either. That'd be too much, man. Because it was it Landis, Carpenter, Walter Hill. All those cats had such wild runs in the 80s, you know?
Yeah,
It's
it's true.
so crazy. And Sam
Joe
Raimi,
Do-
you know,
Joe
those
Dante as
cats.
well.
Joe Dante, of course. Tamara Davis. Holy shit, she made Crossroads. Good for her.
Interesting.
She also did
Gremlins is another film.
CB4.
We're just talking
Really
about Joe
good.
Dante. Gremlins is another film to watch in the
Oh
future as
yeah.
well. I think they'll love. Yeah,
Master, master.
absolutely.
Oh, you got your work cut out. All right, well, wait, one more
Yeah.
question for you. Van Halen, are you Sammy Hagar or David Lee Roth?
David. David
All
Lee Roth.
right.
I like Sammy. I like Sammy stuff, but as a breadth of work, like as a like all encompassing work, it's the David Lee Roth for sure. I mean, for me, Van Halen one is still the best debut album of all time, and it's still their best album of all time as well. And because and I know and I was kind of to and fro for a little bit, but it confirmed it when the Van Halen released the Sammy Hagar box set like last year.
Mhm.
I got both the David Lee Roth box set and the Sammy Hagar, and like I was listening to the Sammy ones, and I was like, I like some songs on their albums, but other songs I was like, not so much. But with the David Lee Roth box set, I was listening to all the albums all the way through, most of them anyway. Um, and I know Sammy's doing a Van Halen tribute tour out there now with Joe Satriani on guitar and such.
Oh,
So
wow. I
yeah,
didn't know that. Pretty cool.
they started. So it's Michael Anthony, Sammy Hagar, Jason Bonham, and Joe Satriani as a Van
Ooh,
Halen tour band.
that's incredible lineup.
Yeah,
I'm with you with I'm more David. I gotta say, as I got older and older, I just a lot more appreciation for Sammy.
yeah.
Yeah, I just recently I was doing a podcast. I didn't realize the over the top song from the Stallone arm wrestle movie,
Sammy Hagar.
Sammy and Eddie Van Halen did the bass on that song. I had no
Oh,
idea.
really? Oh,
Yeah, how
interesting.
dope is that? It's such a
Hmm.
cool song too. Yeah, and yeah, I've been admiring Sammy Hagar a lot more, his vocals. But yeah, of course, David, because I grew up with him. It's like James Bond. It's almost like whoever you grow up with is your Bond, and it's almost like that with Van Halen too, in a way.
And
You
your
know.
Batmans as well.
Yeah, and your Batmans, exactly. That's a good point. You
Yeah.
know.
All right. Well, Stephen, I thank you so very much for your time today. And
Thank
again,
you too.
thank you for all your work, man. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again.
You're too kind. I really appreciate what you're saying. I thank you. It means a lot to me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.